And now to a powerful story that gave rise to a compelling campaign, one that could touch the lives of every working couple who chooses to have a child. Last year, two mothers came face to face with unthinkable tragedy when they lost their infant sons in childcare in two unrelated incidents. Amber Scora and Allie Dodd say if the feds made one change, their sons might be here today. Now the two women are uniting and challenging Washington to do something. They are with us in moments. But first, Trace Gallagher has more on how they got here. Trace.
Megan, Amber Scora gave birth last year, and after maternity leave, she went back to her job at a New York publishing company to pay the bills. One morning last summer, she took her son Carl to daycare for the first time. When she came back to feed him 3 hours later, Carl was on a changing table, his lips and mouth blue. The daycare owner performing CPR that Amber says was incorrect. Carl didn't make it, and his cause of death remains unknown. Allie Dodd from Oklahoma also had a son and also went back to work early to make ends meet. The first day she dropped 11-week-old Shepherd at daycare, she got a call saying he wasn't breathing. He'd been left in an unbuckled car seat in an empty room. He slipped down and suffocated. Now this Oklahoma conservative and New York liberal are banding together to fight for job-protected paid parental leave because they know their stories are not unusual, citing studies that show for each additional month that a woman has maternity leave, infant mortality goes down 13%, that America has the highest infant mortality rate of any industrialized nation, and that 60% of sudden infant death syndrome cases happen in child care settings. In a New York Times op-ed, Amber Scora writes, quoting, "This isn't about daycare safety. This isn't an indictment of the company I work for. I had one of the better parental leave policies of anyone I know. What this is about is that my infant died in the care of a stranger when he should have been with me. Our culture demanded it." The women are now calling on presidential candidates to publicly commit to taking action within their first 100 days in office. So far, their change.org petition has nearly 75,000 signatures. Megan.
Trace, thank you. I'm joined now by Amber Scora and Allie Dodd. Thank you both so much for being here. Let me start with you, Amber, and the piece you wrote in the Times, which was so powerful. And this is still new and it's still raw for both of you because you lost your son a year and a month ago, and it's been not even a year for you. Yeah. So I know this is hard to talk about. Let's just start with what happened on the day that you lost Carl. You dropped him off at daycare. It was the first day.
Yeah, that's right. Like most parents, the first day at daycare is always full of angst, and I had been particularly anxious because I didn't feel ready to go back to work, and I had tried to find other options to get a little more time. But ultimately, because of our circumstances, I couldn't quit my job. So I dropped him off and went to work, and then when I got back, I was going to feed him at lunch. I was expecting to see him smiling and excited to see me because that was the first time that I had ever left him. And instead, I didn't know anything was wrong, but I had walked in. I guess the daycare owner had just discovered him unconscious, and she was giving him CPR.
There was no resuscitating him.
No.
And you wrote in the Times piece, "Our sweet son died 2.5 hours after the first time I left him." And your point, both of your point, is that you left him too early, that you felt you had no choice but to leave him too early, as so many mothers feel because of the absence of paid leave.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I definitely think what unites Allie and I in our stories is that we both, of course, I don't know for sure if things would have turned out differently if Carl had been with me that day, but we do feel that if we had had longer with our sons, it's likely that maybe things would have turned out differently.
Mm-hmm. And Allie, your son Shepherd died in similar circumstances. You left him at daycare, and he was placed in this car seat, unsupervised, slipped down and suffocated. You know, there was a lot about the process you did not know, but the one thing you did know was you were not ready to separate from him yet.
Yeah, but I had to. I knew that, like, I had a date that I had to return to work. And if I didn't return to work, I would not only lose my job, but I would lose my health care for myself and both my sons.
So it wasn't so much about the money exactly, it was the health benefits that you needed to hold on to.
It was a huge, I mean, when you have a child, especially a baby, you've got your well checks, you've got things can go bad quickly with an infant. You want to make sure you take the very best care. And that's really why we're here talking about paid leave, is because it's about the safety and well-being of our kids and being able to provide that for them.
How did you find out that something had happened with Shepard?
I got the most terrible phone call that no parent ever wants to get. She just called and I said hello, and she said, "Get here quick, Shepard's not breathing." And my world fell apart.
You said he was big and he was healthy.
I'd actually forgotten how big. 17 pounds. He was huge, and he was so strong, so healthy. There was no reason for this to happen to my family.
Do you feel like if you had been with him, if he hadn't been in the daycare, it would not have happened?
I think Amber and I both feel that way, and I think there are a lot of parents out there that feel that if they had more time with their children, that we could prioritize our families and that we could make sure that we give them the best start in life.
And it's not about blaming daycare. I mean, this is a lot of parents are out there with their children in daycare thinking, oh my God, like what? It's not about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, our stories are the worst nightmare for every parent, and the vast majority of daycare operators are wonderful. That's not what this is about, but the point is that if we had longer with our sons, or if all of the millions of parents in America had longer, there wouldn't be a situation where people that were in worse situations than us had to go back to work after 2 weeks, which is what a quarter of American women have to do after they give birth.
You say the risk, that's incredible. It's incredible to have to go back to work 2 weeks after you give birth to your baby. There's something very wrong with that. You say the risk peaks between 3 and 4 months. So how long ideally are you shooting for mothers to get paid leave?
I think, well, we're moms, we're not policy people, but I think there's one advantage to America being one of the only 2 countries in the world without paid leave, and that is that there are a lot of examples and research studies done from those different countries that do have paid leave, and there's a lot of evidence for when is the ideal time, and as far as both to do with infant death, with reducing infant death, and also to do with the development. Well, there's a study that just came out from McGill University that says with every additional month of paid leave, infant death goes down 13%. So, I mean, obviously that's not infinite, but
going for as much as possible.
Yeah.
But what is the argument to, because some people, especially you're a conservative, so some conservatives will say you don't want more government mandates, you want to just shame companies into doing it.
So I think from a conservative point of view, you have to look at paid leave from a family values standpoint and realize that you are going to make the family stronger. You're going to make it safer. And this is paid leave, and allowing parents to have more time with their children is going to do nothing but improve that situation and make sure that the health and well-being of that child is the best that it could be.
And not all companies respond to shame, and not all companies can bankroll paid leave. This is why we think this needs to be more of a national universal solution, because we know
what if they can't bankroll it? Then what do they do? Because they say, oh, we're going to go out of business. That's what you do.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, I've had a small business before. I don't think that small businesses can bankroll every employee's paid leave. But if you look at New York State, they just passed a paid leave policy that's excellent. It doesn't cost businesses a penny. For the employees, it's a contribution of about $1 a week. And that is something that every small business could abide by, and it wouldn't be a burden.
Obviously, you're both pregnant.
Yes.
And I congratulate you on the new beginnings. I know it is no soothing balm to your loss, but thank you for being here and for talking to us about this.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.